good evening. Welcome to the Tunnel Podcast, episode 46 of the greatest podcast in the world. Delighted to say I'm joined by Tom Goff. Tom, blockbuster of a weekend, plenty to talk about. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, mate. Yeah, like you said, plenty of action, some cracking games, plenty of talking points. So yeah, looking forward to getting stuck into it, mate.
Listen, we kind of delayed a podcast all night because of that game at Bramall Lane last Monday night. I think the only place to start is with those two at the weekend. Leeds had a chance to go 8 points clear with that early kickoff, really put the pressure on Sheffield United down at QPR. Obviously, you know, you watched it, big West Brom fan, you watched it. I was in a local watering hole watching it as well. Have to say, really surprised by the kind of performance both sides put in.
Yes, mate. Yeah, look, first and foremost, absolutely buzzing with the point we said. I said then on the last pod, we did last week before the game that if someone offered me a point, I would have absolutely ripped their hand off. So over the moon with the point, and you're spot on. I was surprised with both teams' performance. We'll start with Leeds. I think it was, they've been on such a great run, and the fact their last two victories prior to the game at the weekend were obviously against automatic promotion rivals Sunderland and Sheffield United. I think everyone, myself included, was expecting them to still be full of confidence and I don't want to say they were going to roll us over, but I think most people felt like they were probably going to back up those wins with another win against ourselves at the weekend. But yeah, look, people were talking after the game saying maybe maybe this run, because they have been coming up against some real tough opposition. The games have been quite dramatic, haven't they? They've left it late in a couple of those matches to get the 3 points. A lot of adrenaline, a lot of emotion. Maybe did that take it out the players a little bit? There might be some truth to that. Like you said, they weren't fully at the races, were they? They were kind of, I think probably the best way to put it was probably a third gear performance, wasn't it? They were dangerous at times. They always are going to be, aren't they, in games with the players they've got at their disposal. But yeah, they just didn't seem quite at the races. But then, look, you've got to give the Baggies credit as well. I thought that they came and they had a game plan, I think, didn't they? Like I said, I was worried before the game, wasn't I? That we've been a bit, since Tony Mowbray replaced Carlos Corberán, we've been a little bit fragile in defence, and I was worried about our defence coming up against against Leeds, talented attackers. But I felt like Mowbray had a bit of a game plan, which was to maybe kind of shore up in midfield a little bit. He dropped Tom Fellows and brought in Price and pushed Price out to the right and brought John Swift into midfield. So he kind of stacked the midfield a little bit. And yeah, we tried to kind of play on the counter a little bit. So he changed his game plan to try and stifle Leeds a bit, and it worked. I thought we defended really well, and then when we did get on the ball, we tried to pass through the lines, we tried to attack, and we created some opportunities. So yeah, I was kind of pleasantly surprised with our performance as well. And look, I think the draw was probably a fair result. When you look at the chances both teams created over the course of the game, and but yeah, I think the Albion fans will be much happier, with the point come, when the final whistle blew.
Oh, they sounded it. You could hear it at the end. Look, obviously, I don't want to go through play by play, but I kind of felt West Brom from that early chance for Swift, where he just kind of takes it wide of the post. You're thinking, is that going to come back to haunt them? Then Leeds got up the park and score straight away. I've got to say, it's something that I picked up from the weekend's games is centre halves kind of not strapping themselves to attackers and kind of detach themselves to maybe a yard or two and allowing them that opportunity. I feel like Bartley maybe done that with Firpo a little bit, kind of goes towards the ball. There was definitely cases of that twice in the Sheffield Wednesday game. What was your take of the defending for the goal?
Yeah, like you said, I think both both the goals, that were scored, I think both sets of defences will be disappointed, won't they? I think, like you said, they were decent balls into the box, but they weren't exceptional, were they? And like you said, both players almost had a free header, didn't they? A goal. So yeah, it was, like you said, it was quite odd, wasn't it? Because I think both teams have been quite solid from set pieces throughout the course of the season. The pundits were kind of saying, that the both of them, I think, were up there in terms of goals conceded from headers, crosses. So yeah, it was funny to see both teams, concede poor goals in that manner. But yeah, look, it was, I don't know, it was, I think the thing with Leeds, and again, it's just been their massive strength, hasn't it? Is that it was Firpo that was the one who was on the end of the cross. The left back, making that late run into the box. I think it's difficult, isn't it? Because if you're looking at the midfielders and the strikers, you're kind of keeping an eye on them to see where they are and keep tight to them. And it's difficult when you've got the opposition's left backs bombing it into the box as well to try and get on the end of crosses. And that's been a big success for Leeds this season, hasn't it? In terms of kind of overloading the opposition's box when they get the opportunity to do so. We were talking about Bogle, weren't we, in the pod beforehand, and Firpo on the opposite side. They really push up high, don't they? They're almost like second wingers, and it's really difficult to contain them at times, especially when you've got Daniel James and Solomon alongside them. So this is why I was really pleased, mate. That we managed to get a point. Leeds only scored the one goal, and I felt like we did really well in limiting them. It was only it was a handful of chances, really, wasn't it? I know they struck the post, but I felt like we defended really well, really nullified their threat. Wildsmith, I can't really remember him making a real kind of decent save throughout the game. So I think that kind of speaks volumes as to how well organised we were and how well, like I said, we kind of suppressed Leeds' threat. But then, like I said, I did feel like Leeds just weren't at it. Like I said, it seemed like they were in a bit of third gear. They were nowhere near the levels that we'd seen, in some of the games previous. So yeah, I think we take it with a pinch of salt, but still, I think there was a hell of a lot of positives for Albion to take from that game for sure.
Oh, listen, there's a couple of good chances. Armstrong has one, but you think might dink over the keeper. That second header from Furlong as well was a really good chance. So Leeds maybe created a couple of late chances. Joseph on one side, James on the other, as you mentioned. But what I found interesting was, the Leeds fans were they were almost silenced. They seemed shocked as usual. I think maybe they won't admit it, but a lot of them were probably rolling up to Ellen Road at 12 o'clock thinking, this is 3 points. And again, we'll see how Sheffield United get on. And do you think that mentality can maybe creep onto the pitch somewhat?
Yeah, you've got to be careful, haven't you? You're right. And look, I think you're right in terms of the atmosphere at the weekend. But look, I think because of just how good they've been of late, the great run that they've been on, the teams that they've beaten, the manner in which they've beaten them, you can't begrudge them kind of having that attitude. And like I said, we've been quite inconsistent, haven't we, since Tony Mowbray's come in? We've struggled to put a bit of a run together ourselves. So, they were probably expecting to get another 3 points on the board, and the Albion fans were probably thinking the same as well. But yeah, like you said, it was a bit of a shock to the system. Yeah, the atmosphere was a bit flat. Look, Leeds, I think Leeds, their support normally is absolutely fantastic, isn't it? It's been a huge asset for them this season, hasn't it? Like you said, especially at home, but even away as well. They travel really well. They've got a great away following also. So yeah, like I said, mate, I personally think it was just a bit, we're kind of making out it was like a terrible performance from. Look, they could have quite easily got 3 points still, couldn't they? At the end of the day, if like you said, that Joseph or James chance had gone in, it was just like you said. I just think everyone's, the expectation levels, that they've created, everyone's just kind of expecting that week in, week out. I don't think it will be a problem for them. I think the Leeds fans will get get right behind them in the next game. I just think it was maybe a bit of lethargy from, like I said, the games they've played recently, this great run they've been on. A couple of those guys did look a little bit tired, so maybe Farke, hindsight thinking maybe I should have mixed it up a little bit. But yeah, if I was a Leeds fan, I wouldn't be worried too much. I think, I think it was more just a little bit of a blip on their behalf, to be honest.
You mentioned Daniel Farke there. Interesting, his sort of post-match comments. He said, we were overconfident in possession. Our passing wasn't 100% focused, and sometimes you have to live with a point.
Yeah, you're right. Like, look, he'll be doing everything he can, won't he? There's still plenty of points to play for, isn't there? I know we're getting into the kind of business end of the season, but there's a lot of points to play for still. Burnley have obviously had the FA Cup run. They've got a couple of games in hand. Sheffield United, who we're obviously going to discuss shortly, are still, they just won't go away, will they? They're still in touch. So he'll be making sure that they remain kind of level-headed. They don't get too carried away. Like you said, I think there was a few times, wasn't there, Saturday, where they were maybe just trying to do a little bit too much at times, and wrong choice in the pass and so on. But like I said, I think, again, just kind of flip it, I just think, that just credit to West Brom's performance. I thought, like you said, when they didn't have the ball, I thought we were really well organised, defended really well. We were almost kind of man marking certain players, putting them under a lot of pressure, not letting their kind of playmakers, the likes of Solomon and Amundsen, etc. We weren't giving them much time on the ball. So I think you're right. His assessment was right, but again, I think you got to give ourselves credit for how we performed defensively on the day.
Yeah, I thought you were absolutely superb, mate. It was probably as assured against one of the top sides that I've seen you this season. You looked really, really good. Okay. Look, it wasn't a plot twist that we saw coming. However, it certainly gave Chris Wilder probably less of a team talk to do, or certainly a change of a team talk. Do you think they'd be keeping an eye on that, or are you trying to keep them away from that? How do you think you'd have played that, Wilder?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? To see what he would have been saying to him beforehand, whether he would have been trying to get them to, keep off their phones and not have a look at the score and try and, just concentrate on the game ahead, or whether, he saw the result and then used it. I'd be more inclined to think it was the latter, in that, if Leeds had won, then maybe he would have been saying to him, okay, kind of put your phones down. Let's not have a look at, how Leeds got on. Let's just concentrate on our performance. But considering they dropped 2 points, I think, he probably would have used that, wouldn't he, to try and spur them on even more, in their tricky game against QPR away. And look, again, we spoke about it, didn't we? That was a really tough game for them. We were both expecting them to be even further behind Leeds. We both felt that they were going to get the 3 points against ourselves. And QPR, they're still one of the teams in that big bunch who have got aspirations of getting into the playoffs. And everyone knows as well how good QPR are at home. So incredibly difficult game for them. But again, the thing that's impressed me the most with Sheffield United of late is just they've seemed to have got this ability to kind of grind out results, win a bit ugly at times, and just get the job done, which is just absolutely just vital, isn't it? It's imperative that you've got that about yourselves. We've spoken highly of Leeds and taught them up a lot about how they're winning games convincingly and scoring lots of goals, and it's so easy on the eye. But I think you've got to give Sheffield United credit, because they're not maybe picking up the points like Leeds are, but they are going to some real tricky places. Not particularly playing to the best of their capabilities, but they're just getting the job done, aren't they? And like that's all that matters, isn't it? At this stage of the season, it's just about getting those 3 points and staying, well, for them staying in those automatic promotion places, but they're still within touching distance of Leeds sat at the top. So yeah, brilliant 3 points for them, absolutely massive. And yeah, Chris Wilder, I bet you he gets more of a kick out of winning games like that, by the single goal away from home, a real tricky place to go than kind of winning comfortably at Bramall Lane. You can bet that he gets a real kick out of getting 3 points at places like that. Like when they beat Millwall, wasn't it, a few weeks back, 1-0 away from home, really ground that result out. Not the best of games, not very easy on the eye, but that's all that matters, isn't it? It's getting the 3 points at this stage of the season.
Yeah, I think you're right in what you say about that, just win at all costs kind of mentality. And just on your last point there, I think Wilder does, I don't know the guy, but he does seem like a man that would enjoy that kind of north-south divide, really enjoy winning in the capital. To touch on the game itself, I actually thought QPR were lively in this fixture. They had a lot of chances. Every time you watch them, they're really creative. They're quite gun-ho at times. Elias Chair, who you've spoke about numerous times on the pod, it's just, I feel like he's got a move in him. He could definitely make that step up. The first goal, Yang does make a bit of a mistake, dwells on it. Hamer pinches into Sousa. Sousa gets the ball into Diaz, and it's a decent finish. But the second goal, it's just an absolutely wonderful finish from Campbell.
Yeah, Tyrese Campbell, fair play to him because, he's like, his career was, I don't want to say stuttering a bit, but he really struggled at Stoke with injuries, and he obviously got the move to Sheffield United at the start of the season. And, I don't think there would probably be many out there who thought he was going to have the impact he's had for Sheffield United this season. And, he was obviously flying at one point. He got that injury, which, put a stop to that. And then, Sheffield United made the signs of Brereton Diaz and Cannon, and you're thinking, well, when he's fit, is he going to be able to come back in? Is he going to, be able to lock down that starting spot again and have the impact he was before his injury? But he's done it, hasn't he? He's, he's been popping up with a few goals of late. Influential figure for him once again, and like you said, yeah, absolutely stonking goal, wasn't it? At the weekend. Just power, wasn't it? Really, just the pace and the power is what beat the goalkeeper. But
and a great turn, just to start off and set himself. I love that.
Yeah, but I think the thing that impressed me the most is, there wasn't any pace on the ball. He just kind of, like you said, he stopped the ball dead and turned, and then he's just absolutely walloped it, hasn't he, with his left foot, and it's just rocketed past the goalkeeper. So cracking goal from Campbell, and but like you were saying now, it was quite an even contest, wasn't it? I didn't watch the game, but I watched the highlights, and Cooper was busy, wasn't he, in the Sheffield United goal? Like you said, Ilias Chair, big fan of his. He's there.
What do you think to Michael Frey up top? He doesn't look to look at him, you'd think he wouldn't be the kind of player he is. Does that make sense?
I know what you mean. Yeah, like he's got. This is going to sound really harsh, but he's got a bit of like lurch about him, hasn't he? A bit of like. Do you know what I mean? He's just got a bit of like. I don't know.
He looks a bit cumbersome. Yeah.
Yeah, he looks a bit cumbersome. He's just a big unit, isn't he? Skinhead. He's just like your stereotypical kind of. Is he what country? Is he Slovenian or Slovakian or something like that? I think, isn't he?
Yeah, he's definitely Eastern European, isn't he?
He's got But
Swiss.
Do you know what?
He's Swiss.
Is he Swiss? Is he?
Yeah.
He's like you said. I rate him. I do. I think at this level, I think it took him a little bit of time to settle in. It took him a while, didn't it, to get his first goal? But him starting to get on the score sheet regularly coincided with QPR when they had that fantastic run. And I like him, I do. I think he's got a bit of everything about him, hasn't he? He's quite a big lad, good at holding up the ball, decent in the air. But I've seen him, he's got some good footwork as well. I've seen him score all sorts of goals for QPR this season. I think probably the criticism of him is that he isn't clinical enough. The QPR fans would probably admit that he does seem to spurn a few chances before he buries one. But I think he's, like I said, it took him a bit of time, but he's settled into Championship football now, and I rate him. I do. I think he's a good player for QPR.
Do you think that was just almost like an acclimatisation period for him in terms of the league? Now he looks to be actually, dare I say it, he's enjoying himself. And he is a bit of an upgrade on Lyndon Dykes, who they had obviously kind of last year.
Yeah, that's it. I think he is. Like you said, he's similar player to Dykes, isn't he? But Dykes was obviously getting on a little bit. Like you said, I think they were trying to bring someone in to come and like you said, replace Dykes, but off a bit more of a threat, a bit more of a goal threat, a bit more clinical, score more goals. And I think he's doing that, isn't he? He's looking like, a good signing, the money that they spent on him. So, and I think Chair, like I said, Chair was important, him coming back. He was obviously out for a while, but there was troubles, weren't there, off the pitch with him. He was some sort of assault charge or something, wasn't it? I'm trying to, he had some injury problems, but then he had some sort of assault charge or something or another. But yeah, him coming back is absolutely massive for him. And the two, they seem to have formed a bit of a partnership, don't they? Those two, they've been the key players for them. Since they started turning things around and climbing up the table. So, but yeah, I think they'll be disappointed they didn't get something from the match. I think their performance probably did deserve at least a point. But like I said, when we started talking about Sheffield United, I just think they'll be absolutely buzzing with the fact they got all three, kept within touching distance of Leeds. Put the pressure onto Burnley now, haven't they? Obviously they've got the game in hand, but yeah, the pressure's all on them now, isn't it, to get the 3 points and close the gap on Sheffield United once again. So yeah, I think Chris Wilder would have been absolutely over the moon afterwards.
We'll come on to Wilders in a moment. Just quickly, do you think that all but ends QPR for the playoffs? That's 8 points now. Is it a bit of a big ask, do you think?
Just as I bring the table up.
Yeah, choppy now. They're not getting that consistency anymore.
Yeah, that's it. I think that was the problem, wasn't it? It's the classic, isn't it? That run. They needed that run obviously to pull themselves away from the relegation zone, but it was. I think everyone was kind of saying the same thing, wasn't it? That like it's got to come to an end at some point. There was just absolutely no way they were going to carry that on for the remainder of the season. I'm of the same opinion that the same thing's going to happen to Coventry, but the good thing for Coventry is that it's come a little bit later on in the season, and there's not going to be that many games left. So, I think you're probably right. Look, on paper it's not impossible for them, but there's a lot of teams there between themselves and Coventry in 5th place, and like you said, 8 points. That to get that back, with an inferior goal difference as well to a lot of those teams, it's going to be incredibly difficult for them. But look, I think if they can get themselves in the top 10 come the end of the season, I think that'll be a real productive season for them, considering how they started. And like you said, we've just touched on Frey, and a couple of the other guys who came in at the start of the season. It took them a bit of time to adapt. They're fully bedded in now. They've kind of climatized to the Championship. So the hope is next season, they can kind of progress further, and hopefully they start next season a bit better than they did this one.
That's it, absolutely. Just on Wilder, then he said after the game, it'd been a tough week. This was interesting. He said, "I want my players to suffer." He said, "I wanted them to feel, that pain. Then I know that it matters to them." He says, "We've done what we needed to do today." He says, and that's why we've got the best away form in the division.
That's classic Wilder, that stuff, mate, isn't it? It's like, he loves it, doesn't he? He always has to come out with some. It's almost like there's almost a bit of David Brent about him, isn't there? Like he has to just come out with like some like proper kind of cliche BS, doesn't he? He loves it. Yeah, look,
no, on a serious note, though, the away record, it's impressive, right?
it is impressive. And like I said, it kind of, relates to what I was saying earlier in that they just know how to win games. They can rock up away from home and not play particularly well, but they just do what needs to be done. They just, whether it's they get that single goal and just defend for their lives, or they've snuck a few games, haven't they, by scoring late winners. They just get the job done, and it is impressive. And yeah, a lot of credit's got to go to them. Look, I'll be honest here, they've kept pace with Leeds, and I've been surprised at that. I've always thought that they're going to still be up there, but in terms of how they've kept pace with Leeds, how many points are they behind Leeds at this moment in time?
Back to 3.
Yeah, so they're only 3 points behind Leeds. That's incredible, really. Everyone's been talking Leeds up, haven't they? And rightfully so. They've been on this great run, been absolutely fantastic to watch, best team in the division. But yeah, they've kept up with them, haven't they? And they were deducted 2 points. This is the other thing everyone keeps forgetting. They were deducted 2 points at the start of the season. So, in theory, that's only 1 point, isn't it? They're behind Leeds. So, yeah, look, for all, I kind of jest about Wilder and kind of joke about, some of his post-match interviews and so on. He is doing a great job. He is doing a great job. But then again, I do feel like they've spent a lot of money, haven't they, for a team at this level? They've spent a lot of money. They've made some real top draw signings, so they should be up there. But I think the thing that's impressed me most is, like I said, the fact that they've kind of kept in touch with Leeds, and yeah, they're showing no signs of letting up. It does look like that title race is, going to go down right to the wire.
Look, something I want to focus on actually, and I've kind of missed it. We've spoke about officials just being horrific in the division this year. That penalty, Harrison Burrows, what did you think to that?
Well, I just think there's no consistency with these handballs. This is the problem. We saw one, obviously, didn't we, at the West Brom Oxford game, and it was identical to that Harrison Burrows one in that the player jumped with his arms out and it hit his arm. Now, look, I personally think they are harsh being given, but if that's the letter of the law now, and that in those circumstances a penalty should be given, then that's fair enough. But there's no consistency whatsoever. And I think back to the one that went against us when we lost to Plymouth, when it was absolutely blasted at Styles point blank. Okay, his arm was up a bit, but it's absolutely blasted at him from point blank range, and that one got given. So this is the thing for me, is it's just consistency that winds me up. Again, I think they're very harsh, those penalties, when they're given. I think it's incredibly difficult as a player to be, processing in your head, okay, well, I'm going to try and jump and block this cross, but my arms have literally got to be, tied behind my back for a penalty not to be given. I just think it's a bit daft. But then, like I said, if that's the letter of the law, then these refs have just got to try and be more consistent across the board, because that's the problem. It's not, you probably could have, if we did a bit of digging, we probably could have found 2 or 3 examples of something similar that weren't given. This is the problem, isn't it?
100%. Okay, well, listen, this weekend we'll see, the other side of this. It'll be Sheffield United going into it with a chance to possibly go top, depending on how many. No, there's no way they're going to score 14 goals. What am I talking about? Yeah, in fact, 27 goals of a swing.
27 goals, yeah. Bloody hell.
28 now at home, depressing. No, maybe not. Yeah. But they can put a bit of pressure on Leeds, which would be good. And then Leeds obviously play on Sunday down at Pompey, which obviously we know Portsmouth, different animal at home.
Yeah, no, that's it. Like you said, I think, Sheffield United, like you said, got a great chance to put that pressure on Leeds. I think they will. I think we'll talk a bit.
This is a title race now. There's no doubt about it. After Monday night, we thought it was done, and this is just blowing it wide back open again. It's great.
Yeah, well, I think that was it. Like we said, though, didn't we? People were getting too carried away with some of the talk after Leeds beat Sheffield United, because I know that they built a bit of a gap there and then on the night. But like you said, one game week later, and it's back down to 3 points. So yeah, we were both saying, weren't we, that some of the stuff the pundits were saying afterwards was absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, it's a battle, and look, you can't write Burnley off either. If they win their game in hand, they go to 71 points. They're still there. They're still kind of fighting for one of those automatic spots. But look, it's going. I think that they will be disheartened, won't they? Because the two above them just are showing no signs of letting up, are they? Again, they're just banging form at the best possible time, and they're just dropping very little points on it. And like when they do drop points, like Leeds did against us, it's almost shock amongst the fan base, isn't it? And the pundits, etc. When those two teams do drop points. So yeah, it's gonna be fascinating to see how it ends up. And like you're touching on, north, south, and all these teams, obviously they're not too far from one another, are they? Those three teams competing, so there's that added extra little spice to it. It's gonna be cracking to see how it all plays out come the end.
Absolutely. It's like a heavyweight boxing match in a minute, blow for blow. Who's going to go down? We
Yeah.
shall see. Okay, we didn't speak on Wednesday night, Thursday night. When were we on? Thursday night, was it? We didn't speak about Valerian Ishmael. He's just been appointed that day, and we just kind of were talking
Yeah,
that
yeah.
much between us that we missed it. However, you are a disciple or a former disciple of Valerian Ishmael. You can tell us all about.
I wouldn't say disciple, mate. I wouldn't say disciple. Look,
what can the Blackburn fans expect? Because firstly, were you shocked at the appointment and maybe how many names had been linked, and then obviously Ishmael gets it?
yeah, look, I wouldn't say I was shocked at the appointment. I think we said, didn't we, that it all got a bit messy with the Eustace obviously leaving and going to Derby, and we were saying at the time, weren't we, that the Venkies are notoriously difficult owners to work under, and that even though they were sat in the playoffs, I think at the time when Eustace left, that it wasn't that straightforward in terms of bringing someone in. It was some of the names that were linked, likes of kind of Steve Cooper, Russell Martin, these kind of guys. There was absolutely no chance they were going to tempt anyone of that caliber because of, like I said, how difficult the Venkies are to work under, and how tight that their purse strings are. So look, I think it was always going to end up at someone like Valerian Ishmael. And then look, I personally don't think it's that bad an appointment, in that he's obviously got experience managing in the Championship, which I think is, I might be a little bit old school in my views, but I feel, given certain circumstances, and Blackburn's being one of them, in that, we're deep into the season, they've got a chance of getting in the playoffs. There's a lot at stake. I just felt like it was vital that they brought someone in with some Championship experience, know the demands of the division, preferably someone who's worked in the division fairly recently, so they know some of the teams that they're coming up against and some of the managers and their styles, etc. So I can understand why they made the appointment. And look, I think Ishmael will be pleased himself that he's obviously come into a team who are right in that playoff mix, got a great chance of nailing one of those playoff spots come the end of the season. But yeah, look, I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I don't know about you. Have you seen much kind of reaction from the Blackburn fans? Because I haven't seen much in terms of whether they're happy with the appointment or disappointed, or there was others they were more keen to bring in. Or
well, I was going to say to you, just in terms of him does he have to get a top 6 finish to make it a positive? Because, you know, if they don't, is he going to be blamed? You know, you think now that obviously that draw at the weekend sees them slip out. I know it's only on goal difference, but is the pressure slightly on? I know you say coming into a side that's doing well. Does that add pressure? Because we are, as you say, entering into the kind of home straight, and Blackburn fans will be thinking, you know, we want to be in that top 6.
It is a tough one. Look, there's definitely pressure there because, like you said, he's inherited a team who were in the playoffs when he took charge. There's definitely a level of play. I do think. Look, I'll just give you my take, and again, the best. It'll be great to get a Blackburn fan's opinion on this, but I think as long as they remain in that playoff chasing pack right till the very end of the season, if they miss out maybe on the last day or the game week before that, as long as they kind of push it right to the very end, if they miss out, I still think the season will be seen as a real big positive for them, because I don't think anyone was expecting Blackburn to kind of be where they are and has done as well as they have done this season. I think they've been probably the biggest surprise, haven't they, this season? Off the top of my head, I'm trying to think of a team in terms of a positive surprise. Surely they've got to be it. So yeah, I think as long as he kind of keeps them in that mix right until the very end, if they do miss out, yes, it'll be devastating for them, because they've been in that mix right from the very start of the season, pretty much, haven't they? They've been there throughout. I think the only way he'll start, is if they start to tail off, considerably now that he's come through the door. If they start slipping down the table and that gap starts getting bigger between, the teams in and around the playoffs and themselves, then,
So that right, just as he was kind of mid-flow, I'm sure he will pop back on via his mobile telephone. Yes, look, we'll chat through the game itself when he comes back on. We'll maybe speak about Luton as well after that. So we'll wait for him to rejoin, and then we'll get straight back to it. You just have to look at me for a wee while, just as we wait for him to come back on. Listen, somebody is watching, so thanks very much for that view. We do appreciate that. Here he is coming back. Look, I can see him just talking himself up in the background. So there he is. Look, stunning. Welcome back, buddy.
Hey, I've had a good run, haven't I? But it's been a while since I've been kicked out by the laptop, isn't it?
But it was. I could feel it coming. There was a wee bit of times where I could just see. I thought we'll get through. We'll be all right. But anyway, look, you're back. I just want to talk about the game itself, actually, because it was a bit of a sticky one for him. You have to say, the red card. I have to say, Hyam was very lucky early on with what looked like a straight elbow into Gunn's face.
Yeah, that was stupid. Again, I didn't watch the game. I saw the goals, and then just before we went live, I watched the extended highlights, and I'll be interested to see if he gets a retrospective ban for that. I don't know if anything's been confirmed yet, but that was nasty. There was a bit of malice there, wasn't there today? It wasn't just the collision. He tried to catch him. So yeah, that was foolish, and that could have really. If that had been seen and he'd been sent off, then it would have been very difficult for him to get something from the game. Look, they were quite fortunate in terms of how they equalised right at the very end to snatch a point. But I did feel from the highlights and the reports I read, it did sound like a point was probably a fair result. Yeah, Norwich, it's going to feel like a defeat to Norwich, isn't it, when you score in the 90th minute?
90 plus 7.
That's it, yeah. Well, they scored, didn't they? I think in 89th or 90th minute, I think you're thinking that's it. I think even the commentator was saying, that's it. That's the 3 points. And, their fans are absolutely buzzing. Long trip back to Norwich, beating playoff chasing rival. But, they'll be disappointed. They'll be disappointed to let that slip like they did and concede that equaliser late on. But yeah, Ishmael, it's again like I'm intrigued to see how that plays out, because look, he did incredibly well with Barnsley. That's how he ended up at West Brom, was because he had a fantastic season at Barnsley. No one was expecting Barnsley to get in the playoffs the season that they did. And then he came to West Brom. And look, I've said to you, Alan, I do feel like I think he was sacked a little bit too early. We were on the slide. And performances, results weren't going our way, but we were still in the playoffs. And I did feel like the club pulled the trigger too early on him. And then we followed up his appointment with Steve Bruce, so we know how well that went. But then, he went to Watford. That was his next appointment, wasn't it? After ourselves, and he was one of the thousands of Watford managers that have been sacked, over the last couple of years. It's difficult to kind of judge one's time, managing Watford, isn't it? So it'll be interesting to see how he does. I think the appointment kind of makes sense, and I think it was within the pool that Blackburn were going to be able to tempt. I feel like he was probably one of the better ones. So it's going to be intriguing to see how it plays out with him. Because the thing with Ishmael, I was going to say earlier, I forgot to mention, is like when he was at West Brom, when he was at Barnsley, he had this very particular way he liked to play games, and he was one of the ones, I've been kind of slamming over the course of this season, who was he was very reluctant to kind of change his approach and change his tactics, based on how the game was going or based on who you were coming up against. And I felt like, he was very easy to read at times for opposition managers. So be interesting to see whether he's kind of, adapted and changed his tactics, etc. since he was in charge of ourselves and Watford.
One positive that I kind of took away was listening to the fullback Ribeiro speak after the game. He said, look, we've been working all week on getting crosses into the box, and obviously the goal came from his cross environment, getting on the end of it. So that really tells you that stuff that they have been working on in training is coming off. As you mentioned there about it feeling like a defeat for Norwich, Ishmael himself said that felt like a win, getting that goal late on. He also kind of praised the players' kind of mentality, and he said that when he came in, that they've taken it on these plans, and that they've been really kind of disappointed in their play. So stuff that obviously you'd expect him to say, but in hindsight, as I say, when it's coming from the players themselves, saying stuff they've worked on's coming off, that's always a good sign, right?
Yeah, like you said, you have to take that. I was reading the same stuff you've been quoting there. I was looking on the BBC webpage and seeing what it's all kind of cliche stuff, isn't it? When you come through the door, you're not going to say, I've got really bad vibes since I set foot through the door, and the players are really winding me up because they're not doing this and not doing the other, and so on. But look, it's like I said, it's a fantastic opportunity for him, because, and this is the thing with Blackburn. Again, I think I think this is what he's got to try and instill into him, is that even though they've been there throughout the whole season, in and around those playoff spots, they've picked up some great victories. They've really kind of pulled a few surprises, haven't they? Got some great wins against some of the best teams in the division. Everybody still, and even you and me, mate, we're still sat here thinking they ain't going to get in those playoffs. And I think he's got to try and build on that. I think, in that there's no one is talking them up at all, and I think all the kind of the palaver with Eustace and what happened there, of him going to Derby, etc. I think that's kind of reinforced those opinions in people, is that Blackburn, they're not going to make the playoffs. They are going to pull short eventually. So I think he's got to try and use that, hasn't he? He's got to try and use that to his advantage and try and instill a bit like what we say Wilder does with Sheffield United, a bit of us against them. Everyone's trying to shoot us down. No one's talking us up. No one's giving us the credit we deserve. So let's go and prove them wrong. So, yeah, it's again.
You spoke about pressure before. The next one's Derby away. For the Blackburn fans, that's the biggest game of the season.
Yeah, well, that's again like what a game that's going to be. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because if someone said to like you and me at the start of the season that, you know, one of the games you were going to be, you know, most looking forward to come towards the end of the season was the Blackburn versus Derby game, and I probably would have laughed you away. Like it's you know, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how that one plays out given the circumstances, and that's going to be fiery. That one is. That's, you know, and what an opportunity for both managers. You know, John Eustace is obviously absolutely desperate for points at this moment in time. I don't think have they got a point yet under Eustace? I'm not sure they have. You know, so he's absolutely desperate to get some points on the board, and obviously Ishmael, you know, he's just come through the door. You know, he'll be desperate to you know, to get the win, not only to you know, keep him in that playoff mix, but obviously again rub salt into the wound of John Eustace. So yeah, tasty one that for sure.
100%. Okay, right. This is where I maybe have to eat a small slice of humble pie. Luton, I said on the last podcast, they're down. It's done. I even reiterated that on the channel's TikTok page. I said that they've got no chance, and then they come out on the weekend and they get that first win.
Yeah, look, credit where credit's due. I didn't see it coming. I quite fancied Portsmouth to at least get a point. You know, I really fancied Portsmouth to get all three, to be honest with you. So look, I will give Luton credit where credit's due. You know, massive game, obviously, given the circumstances. You know, both teams are obviously down there. You know, trying to stay in the division. But look, you know, from the report I've read and from the highlights I've watched, it did seem a very cagey affair. There wasn't much quality on show. There wasn't many clear-cut chances, and Portsmouth did miss a real big opportunity towards the end of the game, you know, to equalise and likely get something from the game. So yeah, I don't think the Luton fans will be getting too carried away because, like I said, it wasn't the best performance. But, you know, again, touching on what we were saying earlier, Sheffield United, you know, Bloomfield will not care one bit. Yeah, they were absolutely desperate for 3 points. You know, just to get that win. You know, it's now, isn't it? The work's now for them to try and build on that, to try and maybe, you know, see an improvement there in terms of performance. But again, you know, if they go and win the next game in exactly the same manner, he won't care one bit. It's another 3 points on the board, and it gets them a little bit closer to safety. So yeah, absolutely huge for them. I was of the same opinion as you, mate. I thought, you know, I was, you know, where was their next point going to come from? Let alone another 3 points. You know, the way they were playing, the way they were performing. So yeah, look, you got to give them a bit of credit for that, haven't you? But again, I think what I'm trying to say is there wasn't enough in the performance for me now to all of a sudden think, oh wow, you know, I fancy Luton to pull themselves away from this, because yeah, it was a bit of a drab game. Like I said, it was really cagey. You know, it was two teams who were down towards the bottom of the championship coming up against one another.
Listen, it's the first time actually after a match that I've listened to Bloomfield and thought, actually, do you know what, he's actually spot on there. He kind of said, you know, it was relief. He didn't sort of revel in it too much. It had been a difficult week. One win doesn't change anything that we're doing in terms of drive and desire. And he said that we know with quality and experience, we've not been perfect today. We've played better, but obviously we've got the win.
That's it. Well, he's basically just said what I've said, hasn't he? That it's yeah, it wasn't a particularly good performance, but I feel like, yeah, it's again, like, I know it's such a cliche, mate, and you know, we were saying this, weren't we, after, you know, when we had the Swansea lad on and we were chatting about that victory over Bristol. It's you know, it's they've got to use that now. They've got to try and build on that. And like I said, it's not even about performance, but they've got to try and, you know, at least try and not lose in the next game. You know, even if they can get a draw, you know, that's 2 games undefeated, isn't it? That's 4 points on the board. you just got something to work with there, haven't you? And also, you know, the fans, it just gives the fans a little bit of belief, because you know, everything I was reading before the game, you know, after that kind of straightforward defeat to Watford, you know, the fans were really starting to kind of lose hope, and you know, and they were almost kind of inclined to the fact that they were going to be playing in League One next season. So, you know, if you can start getting a few points on the board, showing a few signs of improvement, then you know, you get the fans on board. You know, we all know how important it is to get the fan base behind you, how important a role they can play. So, yeah, do you know who they've got next? It'll be interesting to see who they've got.
It's Burnley away, Cardiff away, Borough at home, Hull away. I'm going to put you on the spot. How many out of 12 are they getting? So Burnley away, Cardiff away, Borough at home, Hull away. How many out of 12?
Mate, that's, you know, like, again, I'll level with you. I think that Portsmouth game might be the last points that they put on the board for a while, to be honest with you, mate. They ain't getting anything from Burnley away. Cardiff away is obviously a massive, massive game, isn't it? You feel like they've got to get 3 points there, don't you? In that
Cardiff and Hull away, you think they've got to try and get 4 points out of 6, haven't they? Really?
But the thing is with those games, you know, away from home, you know, they've not been good at home, but you do feel like they would have more of a chance of getting something if they were playing at Kenilworth Road, you know, away from home. I don't know. I fancy Borough and Burnley against them. I really do, and then Cardiff and Hull. You know, I'd be leaning more towards them. But that's the two games, isn't it? I feel like the target he will be setting from those 4 games is 6 points, Ronnie. I feel like he'll be saying 6 points. You know, bare minimum there. Will they get it though? No chance. I'll be surprised now if they get more than a point from those games.
I don't want to say anything because I stuck my neck on the line last time, and here we are. So I'll stay reserved for the time being. But quite a good news story from the weekend: FA Cup, Preston v Burnley. Preston were magnificent, absolutely magnificent. Some of those goals. I mean, the free kick from Robbie Grady's stunning. I mean, I don't like that. Do you know what? I wanted to actually bring this up in the pod tonight. I'm glad I've remembered. Pet peeve is former players doing that when they score against their old club. I hate it. I hate it. We've paid our money. Our club is paying you now. Celebrate that goal.
Yeah, mate, I agree with you 100%. I think it's an absolute nonsense. There's been Albion players who've left and scored against us, and they've done it to us. You know, they've kind of said, "Oh, you know, I'm sorry. Do me a favour, like, you know, we don't care. Like you said, you've done your bit for the club. You've moved on. You play for someone else now. You know, you don't have to." You know, it's different, isn't it? If Robbie Brady went up to him and started cupping his ears and proper giving it Jamie Vardy vibes, okay, maybe then you're saying, okay, that's a bit much, mate, considering you played for him for X amount of seasons. But there's nothing stopping him running off and properly enjoying it with the Preston fans. He
didn't even smile.
That's it. You know. Well, he put it in, and the first thing he was doing was like, "Oh, sorry. Do me a favour. You've just scored an absolute worldie. You know, you've been. I know he was at Burnley for a long time, but you've been playing for Preston for a while now. It's not like you've just joined them. You know, and it looks like you've set Preston on their course for their first quarter final in bloody God knows how many years. You know, just enjoy it, mate, and go and celebrate with the Preston fans. So yeah, I agree with you 100% there, mate. It's nonsense.
Get it in the bin, and then of course it had to be Osmajic, didn't it? Honestly, you couldn't write the script. And then he does, you know, listen, I'm all for Shithousley, so I just loved it. I thought it was great as a neutral watching, I'm not going to lie. But it had to be him.
Well, yeah. And look,
it's a great finish, by the way. It's a good finish.
Yeah, he's not a bad player, to be honest with you, mate. It's like, look, if you take all the controversy out of it,
there's been a fair bit of it.
Yeah, there's been a fair bit of it. He isn't actually a bad player. He looks, and I remember really early on in the season, I remember that I think it was when I was hosting a few of the shows, I had the Preston lad on, and he was talking them up and saying, you know, he's looking forward to seeing him this season, thinks he can, you know, he can be their main man in attack. He can be their, the guy who scores them the goals and so on. So, but yeah, because none of the Burnley players shook his hand, did they? When at the start of the game. So look, if it's one of those, isn't it? Because if he's true to his word in that, he said what he said and that Hannibal Mejbri misinterpreted it, then that's fair enough. But this is the thing, isn't it? We'll never know as to who's telling the truth and so on. So, like you said, it's one of them for me where, with him doing what he did, scoring the goal and then going and winding the Burnley fans up, it does make me maybe lean more towards believing Hannibal Mejbri than him, because he does like the controversy. Like you said, this isn't his first rodeo, is it? It's every other week he seems to be in the headlines for the wrong reasons. So, yeah, maybe if I was Heckingbottom now, I'd just be saying, look, mate, okay, just keep your head down now, okay? And even if you score, like you're probably going to get stick from the opposition fan base. Just keep your head down, like just try and keep out of controversy now. Just let your football do the talking, but he doesn't seem capable, does he?
Not going to happen, mate. Not a chance. Look, I popped on to Preston's Twitter today. They've got it in the header, FA Cup quarter-finalists, so I think it's great. Let the whole club enjoy that. They've been rewarded. Home tie against Aston Villa. That's going to be played on the weekend, the kind of Mothering Sunday towards the end of the month. That's probably the best they could have hoped for. Is they're going to get a Prem team to get him at Deepdale.
Yeah, I think so, mate. I don't think it's, like you said, this stage of the competition, you're going to be drawing someone strong. And Villa are obviously a top team, but they're still in the Champions League. They're still, they've still got work to do in the Premier League if they're to get a Champions League spot once again. So, the hope is there that they make a few changes, because this is what Burnley did, mate. I think Burnley, I think Parker underestimated them a bit in that he made a few changes to the starting 11, whereas Heckingbottom just, he went with his strongest team. He properly went for it. His aim was to get into that quarterfinal, where I felt like Scott Parker, he rolled the dice a little bit, made some changes, and it didn't come off for him. And they were, like you said, comfortably beaten. Preston with a far superior team, deserved the win to get through to the quarterfinal. So, yeah, that's it, mate. Look, I'll obviously be rooting for them, considering they're going up against the Villa. But yeah, as a championship team as well, like, yeah, I'm hoping that they can keep flying the flag and maybe cause another upset. And look, Preston again, they've got a lot of people don't realise, but they're one of the founder members of the football team. They've got a lot of history. They've won the FA Cup a hell of a lot of times. All right, I know it's going back, some time, but they've got a lot of history in the competition. So yeah, it's good to see them, having a good run, doing well, and like you said, flying the flag for the championship.
Just final word, Paul Heckingbottom, doing a really good job there, isn't he?
Yes, mate. Like you say, obviously the start of the season they have was terrible, really. In that, Lowe, was he sacked or they kind of parted ways or whatever? It was only a few games in, wasn't it? It was the worst possible start to the season that they could have wanted. And yeah, look, Heckingbottom coming in again. It wasn't one of these kind of sexy appointments, was it? He's experienced chap at this level, knows the division inside out. Probably more noted for erring on the side of caution, setting up teams defensively, difficult to break down, etc. But yeah, look, he's really kind of steadied the ship. I think that's probably the best way to put it, hasn't it? And they've flirted with the playoffs a little bit, which again, if you'd asked, any Preston fan at the start of the season, after, Lowe was sacked and, the kind of poor start that they had, whether, kind of halfway through the season, 2/3 of the way through the season, you're kind of flirting with the playoffs once again, they probably would have said you're joking, aren't you? So yeah, I think he's done a great job, to be honest with you. Look, I don't think there's, they're on 42 points now, 15th. I think that's probably going to be where they end the season. But like I said, I think that's probably a positive considering the start they had. But then to add to it, they've had this fantastic run in the FA Cup. And like you said, I think most people, understandably, will be looking at a tie going, oh, yeah, Villa all day. But again, I don't think it's as straightforward as that. I think Preston will cause them some problems. I think Villa will make a few changes. So they've got a chance. It's going to be tough, but they've definitely got a chance.
Okay. We will call it a night there. There are 4 games tomorrow night. Cardiff, Burnley, Hull, Plymouth, Millwall, Bristol City, Preston v Swansea. But we'll review them when we're back on Thursday night. There'll also be a little special on Wednesday night. Should have a guest on, but I'll keep you updated via the other socials. So yeah, if you've been watching, give us a like, give us a subscribe as always. And we'll see you guys on the other side. Thanks very much.